Esther chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. But after Xerxes' anger had subsided, he began thinking about Vashti and what she had done and the decree he had made. So his personal attendants suggested, "Let us search the empire to find a beautiful young virgin for the king. Let the king appoint agents in each province to bring these beautiful young women into the royal harem at the fortress of Susa. Haggai, the king's eunuch in charge of the harem, will see that they are all given beauty treatments. After that, the young woman who most pleases the king will be made queen instead of Vashti." This advice was very appealing to the king, so he put the plan into effect. At that time there was a Jewish man in the fortress of Susa whose name was Mordecai, son of Jair. He was from the tribe of Benjamin and was a descendant of Kish and Shimei. His family had been among those who, with King Jehoiakim of Judah, had been exiled from Jerusalem to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. This man had a very beautiful and young, lovely cousin, Hadassah, who was also called Esther. When her father and mother died, Mordecai adopted her into his family, and he raised her as his own daughter. As a result of the king's decree, Esther, along with many other young women, was brought into the king's harem at the fortress of Susa and placed in Haggai's care. Haggai was very impressed with Esther and treated her kindly. He quickly ordered a special menu for her and provided her with beauty treatments. He also assigned her 7 maids specially chosen from the king's palace, and he moved her and her maids into the best place in the harem. Esther had not told anyone of her nationality and family background, because Mordecai had directed her not to do so. Every day Mordecai would take a walk near the courtyard of the harem to find out about Esther and what was happening to her. Part 2. Finding Favour. Later. This seems to occur about 4 years later, perhaps after the king had been at war with Greece, which did not end well. When his anger cooled and King Xerxes remembered his action with regard to Vashti's deposing, when he remembered his reaction in the heat of the moment and the actions taken, perhaps primarily because he was embarrassed in front of the guys, he appears to have rethought the situation. It is only later that the king seems regretful as he remembers Vashti, his wife. It isn't that the king lacked female companionship. He had a harem of numerous available beauties at his beck and call. But Vashti had been chosen as his number 1 wife. She had been chosen by the king to wear the crown and sit at his side during royal functions. She had distinguished herself enough to win his favor above all others. Now he reflects on the whole event and seems lonely, perhaps? All of us can recall a situation where we have reacted in such a way that when we reflect back upon the scene, we regret our actions or words. We have been sorry we didn't hold our tongue and kept our cool in that heated moment. We could take the reminder here, warning us not to act in haste or out of embarrassment in front of our friends. Looking from the outside in on the story, it is easier to begin to see God's moving in the book of Esther, though he is not referred to even once. John 3:8 says this, "The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going." We as believers in our supreme God and Father can take great comfort in God's guiding hand, that he is actively involved in our lives and orchestrating events in our world, ultimately for our good. Proverbs 21:1 reminds us that God turns the hearts of kings as easily as he redirects a stream of water. Esther is a grand example of this truth. Let it soak into your pores as you watch the following scenes unfold. Obviously, Xerxes' personal attendants, those responsible for his health, well-being, and happiness, noticed the mood of the king and judged that something needed to be done. So they came up with a wonderful plan, a plan to distract the king and fill the vacancy left by Vashti. In essence, this is what they said. Let's have a beauty contest, O king. The advice appealed to the king, and he gave his approval. Of course. Representatives of the king went throughout every province of his realm looking for the most beautiful young virgins of the land. These were then removed from their homes and families, and they were taken to the harem at the citadel of Susa. Point, they were never to return home, probably had little, if any, contact again with their families, not directly anyway, and they were now considered the property of the king. Note, the Bible is not condoning this action. It was a sad fact of the day and time, but we will watch and see how God uses the situation to bring about his own purposes. We are meant to be encouraged when we find ourselves in situations we cannot control. Jesus said, quote, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. John 16:33. Among the king's subjects were a large number of Jews who had been taken from Jerusalem by King Nebuchadnezzar, then king of Babylon. They were exiled among the cities of the Medes and Persians for over 100 years. These Jews had been allowed to live among the general population. Some had even risen to positions of authority in the palace and government. One such Jew was Mordecai, from the tribe of Benjamin. He adopted his cousin Hadassah, whom we know as Esther, from the time her parents died years earlier, and raised her as his own. We are told she was lovely in form and features. Esther was one of the lovelies that was taken to the palace of the king and put under the care of the king's eunuch, Haggai, in the harem. Neither Esther or Mordecai had any choice in the matter. What would happen to her? The new world was foreign to her. Right away, we're told that Esther gained the attention and favor of Haggai. She must have really been something to look at, as well as winsome in character, for her to stand out in this large group of beauties so quickly. As such, Haggai took 7 maids from the palace and assigned them to Esther for the duration. She was also given the best place in the harem. By singling her out with extra attention, Haggai made Esther the one to beat in the upcoming contest to become queen of Xerxes. It is interesting to note that before Esther had been conscripted, Mordecai had instructed her to keep quiet about her heritage, and she obeyed him. This meant that, unlike Daniel, who refused the king's meat and drink in a similar situation, she was not distinguished by her diet or customs, so no one in the palace had any inkling that she was a Jew. This will be important as the story plays out. We are told that every day he, Mordecai, walked back and forth near the courtyard of the harem to find out how Esther was and what was happening to her. This must have been really trying for him, as this was his daughter, and he knew the intrigues and politics of palace life. She had presumably never been out of his home for any great length of time, especially in the care of those outside his faith. They had no cell phones, no email, and no TV. There was no way to get information in or out of the harem except by messenger on occasion. This was really a disruption to his life as well, and we can only imagine his misgivings. We are not told that Mordecai prayed for Esther, but you know he did on a continuous basis. What must it have been like in the harem? So many women. 12 months of preparation for each young woman. 12 months before a most important beauty pageant. 12 months before going into the king's bed. We will imagine and look with wonder at the following scenes as God's purposes and plans begin to unfold.